Big story today. Well, year 2011 witnessed major financial crisis around the globe. The current uncertainty reminds us the nightmarish trend of year 2008 when laying off had become the order of the day. But many experts believe that the strong fundamentals of the Indian economy would not only prevent any negative impact, but also numerous job opportunities are going to come up. Here's a report.
Year 2012 could begin with fresh hope for those who are looking for an upward career graph. A research report has predicted that there would be a whopping 5 lakh new jobs created this year. This all despite the uncertainties prevailing about the overall economic scenario worldwide. The Indian job market could not stay aloof from the financial turmoils of many developed nations, especially in the Eurozone in 2011, but emerged out of it rather strong as companies adopted a cautiously optimistic approach. Experts believe in the new year jobs would continue to be added, albeit at a slower rate. Adding to the chairs of the job market, the employees could expect double-digit salary hikes during 2012. The IT and technology sector will be the largest job provider, with almost half the jobs emerging here. Some HR firms expect hiring activities to increase by 7 to 8% in 2012 from the levels seen in 2011, as companies across the board increase their technology investments and entities from abroad look at India-based service providers or development centers. There is a bright prospect for both domestic as well as multinational companies based in India in the IT and ITES segment. In the coming months, job opportunities are expected to grow exponentially in sectors like retail, healthcare, and IT and ITES, defense, hospitality, and consumer durables. Experts believe that hardened interest rates are bound to come down, giving much-needed respite to banking. This should boost real estate and automobile sector, resulting in better job opportunities. Other sectors like retail, hotels, and hospitality could pick up pace in 2012. Analysts also say that FMCG and pharma are insulated from the recession and will remain constant. E-commerce too is a new kid on the block and is expected to compensate for any other dull scenarios. If experts are to be believed, average salary would increase from last year. Abhishek Jha's report, DD News, Delhi.
Studio bar is Sunil Goel, who's the director of GlobalHunt. Thank you, Mr. Goel, for joining us here. Let's talk about this whole report that's come out about 5 lakh jobs being created in 2012. There were a couple of weeks back about reports about layoffs that were happening globally, and that could impact India as well. So how do we see these conflicting reports? Because a couple of weeks ago it was about a big banking sector actually laying off people, and close to 1,200 people in India probably.
See, the layoff and the hiring both are the part of the industry movement, right? If you look at it, it's never a market or situation when the layoffs are not happening or the companies are not right-sizing their operations. And that can also vary from organization to organization. To just, support this, I tell you, as and when there's one company goes bankrupt, the another company takes over. It means the other company they see the potential in the market and possibilities. So they go ahead and hire them. So the ownership and the stakeholding changes, but the operations remains there, right? So from the overall perspective, if you look at, definitely the Europe and the US, both the economies are going through the turbulence, time. They've been fluctuating a lot. But India has been globally, if you look at from the advantage what we have from the India market perspective, we have a 50 to 60% which is a local consumption and 30 to 40% which is dependent on the export of services. And export of services which is majorly on a more of you talk about IT, which has been the contact centers, the service centers, the back office operations, right, which has been a strength in India.
Sure, but do you think that's going to be impacted? We know what's happening in the US. We know that President Obama has been talking about not giving the tax breaks to companies or actually outsourcing to other parts of the world, and that is one fear we always had, that would really hit the Indian BPO sector, which was at a boom in the last few years.
See, there's a two aspect. A government-run organization, those who want to take a tax benefit, but they'll not be able to go and compete in the market. To compete in the market, it's very, very important that you have a cost-effective productions and the availability of the sources and the skills which are there. If you look at that, India gives the two things to the global market. One is that the cost-effective solutions, cost-effective services. Second is that there's a skills availability, which is there. We have the educated pool of the engineers and the MBAs and the graduates, which no other part of the world has it, what we have. So what, we used to talk about a population 10 years back, which not used to be a good thing for us, is actually has become, advantage for us today. So we have educated pool of the people, those who can service the global market. And from the geographical availability perspective also, we fit in the best. For US market, we have the night shifts, which we call it, like 9 to 6, which is a non-working hours for the people here. They work and they generate the productivity. Graveyard shifts, which generates a revenue for India, right? Similar way, India is strategically located from so many other countries. They're two hours ahead, 2 hours behind. So it has a flexibility to serve the multiple markets. Top of it, our flexibility to speak English. If you go and you look at China as a market, they have a constraint of the English. Even if you go in Europe, some part of that, Germany and others, where you'll find French-speaking people, not the English-speaking. Advantage what we have is those.
Those are the advantages clearly that we have. But when you're talking about these educated youth that we have, do you think they're employable? And what are the skill sets that we're looking at? Do you think that the skill sets that they are being provided are enough to actually take them forward, or are they going to be stuck in these industries? I mean, when you talk about the BPO, how long can it be a career platform for a young individual when you're talking about these night shifts? Parents are always very worried about youngsters joining these companies because they don't see a long-term future. See, and the attrition rate is very high as well.
If you look at, I'm not restricting this whole hiring to a BPO specific. BPO is a very, very small part of the whole industry. Today, you look at that we did not have automobile R&D in India. Today, we are looking at the companies, the Indian companies, those who had collaborations with the global partners, are looking forward to set up their own R&D centers in India. You did not have a good healthcare services centers in India. Today, India is going to become a global health tourism center, where a lot of the people from the different part of the world are going to come and get, going to get the medical treatment done here because of the cost effectiveness and availability. So it's not a one sector. BPO is just one of the sector which has actually emerged maybe 10 to 15 years back, and which started just giving like a contact center. Now we have emerged much above level than the contact center. Today we talk about, earlier people used to pick up the phone, used to do the customer services. Today you employ the engineers, you employ the chartered accountants, you employ the different kind of cost accountants, MBAs to do their data analysis. Those jobs can be done during the day, those jobs can be done during the night. You only need the night when you have a direct customer interfaces. When you do not have a direct customer interfaces, a company X which has to process a payroll of their 20,000 employees, if that activity has been done from the India, they don't need to work in the night. Then they need to work only in the day. So the voice based, the BPO concept which was there, which was only dependent on the voice, has actually gone. That has gone. So which is only the 10% of the industry. The 90% of the industry has become more of a database, the content based, the value proposition, which is the middle office and the back office. The front office only goes and does the sales, but where your calls gets routed and who does the data crunching. As a customer, you need a proposal. For maybe you are a large customer, enterprise customer, you need a proposal. So either somebody need to sit in the US market or Europe market to do the proposal preparation, or somebody is sitting in India, understands your needs and prepares the proposal for that company.
But do you think that the age factor is going to play a big role here? Do you think more young people are going to be employed because the salaries that these companies will be paying out to them will be much lesser than what you would pay for an experienced person who would do the same job?
See, the organizations are becoming younger these days. I won't say it's becoming, there was a time when chief executive officers or, like a directors or the vice president has to have a gray hair with them to grow to the organization. That time has changed, right? So now gray hairs are actually, I won't say it's not required. They definitely have a lot of experience. They are valued to it. They are required. But they also need to consistently upgrade their skills and bring in the value propositions. So organizations are becoming younger. There's a lot many of the good and intelligent folks which has been given an opportunity to head the department, function, and even down the line, even at the front level and the bench level, the people has been recruited from the business schools, engineering colleges, and even from the direct graduation institutions, maybe good institutions, and they've been given the opportunity for it. So organization average age are reducing. If you look at from the overall perspective, it's definitely not 40 years or 35 years. It's coming closer to 30, 32 years and 33 years. If you talk about the average age of the organization, where definitely there's a lot of opportunity for the youngsters to come up and take up the opportunity, learn a particular industry functional areas, and then to carry on their career into the same segment. So that is what has been already has started happening.
But looking at the way India is growing, do you think that this figure of 5 lakh in 2012, do you think that's an optimistic figure that we're looking at? Are you happy with this kind of figure of job opportunities for this year?
Let me give you a very, very realistic picture, like what has been, how these figures has been, perceived and where we reached to. if you look at a downsizing or a slow of the economy, which has not actually happened in December 2011 or November 2011, which actually had started happening from the May 2011. So this slowdown phase is already almost 7 to 8 months old. And when we talk about a 2011 as a situation, right, then this situation will be affected. The slow will be affected for only for a first quarter. Post that, the market is going to improvise. And when in today's time, also if you look at today, if you go and look at, you talk about automobile, still you have a more booking than with what the companies can produce the cars, right, in the market. You talk about agrochemicals market, agri-energy businesses. You have so much of huge demand. You talk about infrastructure, you talk about power and energy. These are the sectors, green energy you talk about. These are the sectors where there is a huge demand. So we only look at from a top line perspective that fine, this is the 1, 2, 3, vanilla industry, something has been happening. And it talked about if the policies gets opened up for retail, retail itself can multiply these numbers to 5 times if this gets opened up into the full format, what it was discussed. So that
you're talking about that 51% FDI.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So if that get opened up, it's not only creates the jobs for a professionals, you also look at the jobs which comes to a large pool of the people, where the large pool of the SMEs gets, like popped out, where your companies do become a specialist product, like producing organizations, and they become a direct, those retail chains becomes a direct customers for them. So it's a employment, and then there's a SMEs, and then the sub SMEs, right? So there's a multi, it's a
trickling effect, you see.
It's a multi effect. So people will become more entrepreneurs, right? There will be small size of the companies, which will have some people 20, 30, 50 employability, kind of headcounts with them, and those will be serving this organization.
But are you also hopeful of salaries increasing, or are they going to be stable, or do you think these companies are going to give more increments to the employees, looking at the way inflation has been in the last year?
See, inflation effect is there. I mean, salary increase also, what we have seen and what we have observed is that it actually doesn't stop, right? It remains very, very consistent. Now you have to categorize it. Categorization happens in 2 ways. Now you always have some people, those who keep hopping the job in 3 months and 6 months and keep changing when the market is on peak, and every company wants to catch the resources and get their project started. Definitely those people will not get the much of hike or enough hike you are talking about. Then
if we talk in percentage terms.
Yes, percentage terms. When you're talking about in terms of people, those been consistent with the organization, been a performer with the company, been a hard worker, companies do see the values into it. See, either it's a slowdown, yes. So loyalty based off, and you say whatsoever, company also needs them to survive, right? So it's a people requirement, it's an organization requirements both ways. So companies do end up giving them, increase. Even in 2008-9, when there was a slowdown in the market, companies had given that, increase to the people. Now there was a 2 ways. Now some company did not give them a same grade hike on the same grade, they upgraded the grade. So they went on the higher salary structure itself. So there's a 2 ways to give. One, you say that fine, your grade doesn't change, but you take a 5%, 10%, 15% hike, but say you've been a performer, but we have across the board there's a freeze, but I'll upgrade your grade of the job.
Sure.
So automatically you get a hike. So there's an advantage to it. And those been only done with the people, those been a performer, result achievers, and been contributing towards the organization, not for all, definitely.
Okay. Yeah, obviously. Mr. Goel, we're very short on time, but very quickly, before we wind it up, where do you see most of these jobs being created, in what sector? Do you think the IT sector is going to be affected, after, with the bill in the US about, like I asked you before, about tax breaks being taken away from companies who outsource in the US, but do you think that is also going to trickle down to the IT sector? Then again, the sectors that we're looking at, which will be creating the maximum number of jobs in this year.
See, IT has been, largest market share holding industry for export of services, and that's how you look at that. TCS has superseded the RIL today, right? Because that's been that, biggest services company for IT, and it has become from the market cap perspective #1. So whatsoever is the effect, whatever policy, governments brings in, there would be effect. It's not fair to say there will be no effect. There would be effect, but still India will remain as the largest export, of the services from the IT perspective. Apart from that, if you look at, there are large pool of the Indian people, those been required in different developing countries like Africa and, Middle East kind of markets. So experienced professional, what you talked about, the gray hair and the black hair, kind of things. So a lot of gray hair kind of people been given expatriate, a status in the markets like Africa, especially Nigeria, Kenya, and the South Africa markets, where the new industries are setting up, maybe telecommunications, maybe banking, maybe commodity, FMCG, because they believe that Indian professionals have seen the complexity and the volume of the populations and the size of the business,
Sure.
which is almost second, like in the world, right? And they have experienced this. They are English speaking, so they can go and fit into any culture, and they've been given a compensated well to opt those kind of job. Third, if you look at that, India itself has a large number of industries which are emerging. Like today, we talk about power and energy. We have so many power projects coming
Infrastructure.
up. Infrastructure has been another industry. Agro, agrochemicals and agri-energy, agriculture as an industry itself has been a huge within itself. If you look at, apart from services we are talking about, automobile R&D has been happening. Healthcare services, I'm not talking about pharma, healthcare services has been another growing industry.
Real estate.
Real estate has been the another, still there's a huge potential to go to the tier B, tier 3 cities. So there's a huge potential in the market. I mean, we should not assess only what if the banking has gone down, then the whole industry will dip or not. So banking also has a phase. When the stock market goes up, the banking is the only sector which booms and others waits.
Sure, Mr. Goel, we'll have to leave it there, but thank you so much
Sure.
for joining us today and putting all that into perspective for us.
Thank you. Have a good day.
With that, it's time for a break here. Stay with us, more on the other side.